Hi, my name's Edwin Rutch, and I'm director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. And this is our dialogues on building a culture of empathy. And I'm here with Felicia, Mareels, and Michaela. Hi, thanks for joining me for this dialogue.
Good morning.
Hello, Edwin.
So just to begin with, I want to give a little introduction about you and your work, that you're integrated energy workers and teachers and mentors and empowerment facilitators. And you work with facilitating pain and trauma release, and do some work around like an empathy-based witnessing process. So do you want to add more about a little bit of a background about yourselves?
Go for it. Well, I began my energy work as a shiatsu student, and I really liked the idea of looking at the issues in the tissues. So I studied under a psychologist, transpersonal empowerment psychology, and learned a bit about breath work and visualization, and I learned that people could transform their issues. I brought that, I integrated that work into body work using mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And so it had a whole holistic approach to bringing change to people's lives. And that idea of witnessing, I didn't call it then, but with the energy of empathy, I was witnessing all of the things that were in there to begin with, and then how they came about into real lasting change.
Mm-hmm. And I have many healing modalities that I've played with, flirted with, and even mastered some of them over the last 22 years. But what I've really come to now at this place is it's not about healing or doing anything for anybody except for holding a place for them to reveal who they really are, their authentic being, who already is there, already is magnificent, ready to bloom, but just to be recognized. So all of the work I've ever done has come now to this point, and to this point in terms of initiation and different processes that Felicia and I are doing together. It's very exciting.
Mm. So can you tell me about the work that you're doing now, your kind of this new process of empathic facilitation and integration?
Well, first of all, there's a really important component to this work, and is that to bring a client or a group of people into the same space so that you can actually have a coherent conversation. Mm-hmm. And there is something really important about that because the person feels really prepared to be seen and heard and understood. So the first process that I created, and Andrea was one of my initiates, I created something called an innocence wisdom. Innocence meaning fresh, open, alive, curious, boundless, and very interested in everything. And wisdom being all of that information that every person carries from lifetimes before, right? So what I did was I used a breath work. And so this was a standalone kind of a process that was not talking about any issues at all. It was just reintegrating the person, reawakening their most profound and beautiful aspects of their humanness, their best qualities. And so they felt very prepared now to look at a trauma, because the trauma was always smaller, less significant than their total greatness.
And it was also no longer.
Before we go, so what you're coming together with someone, would be in person or online? Is that?
I've done it mostly in person. Okay. But more recently, since the technology has improved, people are at quite a distance, and I can do the same work online or even over the phone.
And then, so what I'm hearing there is you come together in person, on the phone, or online, and that you're creating like an empathic presence, creating a space to hear the person, yeah. And you're creating kind of through breath work and others, a kind of a broader space for the person, so that when they bring their trauma or pain, that it's not filling their whole awareness, that they're having more space for that, and that you're kind of offering a space for them to share that their pain or trauma. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think that's a very good description. Thank you for reiterating it like that. The other thing I'd like to add is when that space is created, it's a totally safe space. It's a space with no judgment. So it doesn't matter what boogeyman comes out of the closet, so to speak, if there is one to come. It's all okay. It's all part of a person's story. It's all legitimate and it's all welcome. It's like a time when we're not being encouraged to stuff all of these things inside us, but we have this opening, this fresh space to just let it go, just be who we are at that moment, regardless of what combination of things are happening to us as a human at that moment. And that itself is a very powerful second of existence, moment of existence. We can just be who we truly are. No masks, nothing, just this is it, bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. So you're creating a space where someone can share who they really are without any judgments.
Absolutely.
And then you'd also talked about the centering, that a large part of what you're working on is like you creating a sense of centering. How are you going about that?
Well, first of all, it's always through breath, and it's through an idea that actually expands and deepens and the quality of what a person actually knows themselves to be as a human being. Mm-hmm. So in initiations of innocence, I go through a process where I ask them to lighten the edges of their body, and so they can take in more and more, or they allow more and more, or they're available for more and more energy. Mm-hmm. And once they've expanded to their fullestness, you can introduce them to a space that I call the living library. And that is an access of your higher consciousness that we all share as human beings. And there's much, much more to say about this, but from this space, a person feels like they can handle everything about any difficulty or trauma that they might have had. And the best part about this is what they get to witness is a trauma most often is what's in, and a recent author just wrote a book called What's in the Way is the Way. So when that trauma that has been in their way, they actually see that when they go in and through it with their newly awakened and realized consciousness, their empathy is great. Their empathy they're capable of seeing everything about the trauma, to educate them, to inform them, and also to grow them up. Because a lot of people are very stuck in their trauma. That's saying the 2-year-old's doing the banking and the 9-year-old's driving the car. Well, that's kind of the description about where we are when we have a trauma that blocks our ability to be truly who we are.
So you're kind of, what I see there is you're allowing a space for someone to share their trauma, and by sharing the trauma, that a person is able to go into it and go through it.
Yes, but they don't have to relive it. That's kind of the old therapeutic approach, that we have to go back and somehow relive it in every single way and feel the feelings of back there and go through the anguish. It's not about that. When you're in this other space, it's just there. Look at me. Okay, I get it. And then this, as Felicia said, this sort of wiser, bigger knowledge about why have we set ourselves up like this, that we hit this certain block again and again. So these are the things that are revealed in different ways to different people and different processes. And it can be marvelous because you never know what's coming. It's like, as unique as we are as individuals, the processes that we go through, the uncovering process that we all go through is very different from each of us. Very beautiful and always revealing. Always revealing.
Okay, so what I'm kind of getting there is kind of what I'm imagining is you create like a broader emotional space, and then you allow the trauma to come up within it, but you don't kind of like go into dwelling in the trauma. You kind of just let it kind of move through.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and you know, Edwin, this is where empathy it gets a much more evolved consciousness to it, because it embraces all time and space. So when you're going back into trauma, you're going into another piece of time. The person that experienced that, you know, is usually a younger age than what you are now. And for you to embrace that, even the person or the situation, they were all different than they are now. So you're going in to explore a territory with empathy that has the full compassion, understanding, and also an availability that wasn't there before.
Right.
To accept everything about the person. And when you do that, you actually get a fuller understanding of why that person may have hurt you or why that situation happened. And the wonderful thing about it is that you've got the greatest opportunity then for forgiveness. Like, whoa, this was a total misunderstanding. This was an accident meant to happen because neither one of us were prepared to be in our best place, to be our best self, or to even admit how authentic we really were. Their pain caused my pain. And that's, yeah.
So you have like a fuller experience of what's kind of related to the trauma or the pain. You can kind of see other people's perspectives, points of view, and kind of get a bigger picture of it like that.
Yeah.
That can happen. It doesn't always flush out that clearly and complex, but as Felicia's just said, it brings us to a place where we come to a deep empathy with whatever that is, our own empathy, our own understanding, and our own how it's placed in the context of when it happened, and why we would have chosen at some level to have gone through life in that way, even though it seemed tough, even though it was a challenge. There's reasons for everything, so that the wisdom of all that can come through.
Do you have some stories about it, like kind of some actual stories or anecdotes of what's happened?
I have one. I had a massage client that was constantly, when I was working on her and on her chest, she would always see these gold buttons on her chest. And after some time of working with her, I asked her, would she like to have an initiation of Innocence Wisdom? And she did. She really loved it. She said, whoa, what can we do with this? Like, I mean, I'd like to look at some traumatic things. And I have some issues with my dad, who passed away when I was really, really young. And funnily enough, like, this is like 6 months since the button thing first started. Guess what happened? She saw herself as a 2-year-old on a blanket, and it was her father's buttons. He was a sailor, and he had gold buttons going down the front. And she suddenly, I could smell it in the room. That's very interesting because it sometimes happens. Pipe smoke, a very nice brand of pipe smoke coming in. She says, I see a fire, because she's looking at it through 2-year-old's eyes. I see a flash of fire, and I smell this really nice smoke, and I can smell it in the room. And then suddenly she just, she went into feeling her dad holding her, and she got to say goodbye to him in that place, even though it really didn't happen in what you'd call actual time. She got to say, these are the things, the last things I remember about you, and I've never forgotten you. And even though I don't recall the dialogue, there was a reciprocity there of the father going, you were my heart. You know, you were so valuable to me. I could hardly wait to get home to see you. I miss you too. And that so changed her confidence after that. I mean, she didn't argue with her husband as much. She didn't pick on every little thing. She had this is the word we want to talk about, this longing. which is like a noise in the background all the time. You've forgotten something, something's missing, something's not done.
Mm-hmm.
And this was her longing in the background that was creating a noise that didn't make her available for her own, especially her males in her family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there any more?
What I find when I do this type of work is, I don't know what your belief in past lives or simultaneous lives are, but because we enter the space of no time, no space when we do this work, any part of our beingness and our experience can come through. So it seems very often to people it's an experience they can identify in this life. So call it what we will. It's something that's happened in another part of themselves of experiences, and it's coming through and causing trouble for the now moment of that person in their life here on Earth in this 3-dimensional now 2015. So it is amazing again when people connect and understand, okay, this is something that has happened somewhere in my myriad of experiences that is still affecting me. And so when they see it and they experience and they work through it, they breathe through it, they see through it, they embrace it, and again, they forgive it, it's transformed. It leaves. It goes. It has been seen, back to empathy. It has been seen, the little child in it has gone, oh, please look at me, please look at me. And it's been doing that for a long time. And finally, it's looked at. It's like,
Yeah.
and it transforms. So that can transform out of a physical body. It can be an emotional pattern that's just kept somebody running for a long time. It can be these looping thoughts, I'm not good enough, nobody loves me. Whatever level it's being held on and it's being predominantly presented, it can completely disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what seems like the miracle, right? But the miracle is just meeting these unmet pieces of ourselves and integrate them back into the whole, which is, I believe, what this great longing is that all of us have, is to be back into the whole, back into the oneness, not in all these little separate pieces anymore. We're coming back in, and it's a beautiful process. And sometimes it's a difficult one.
Well, there's the sense of inner integration. For me, there seems to be something about the sharing with someone else.
Yes.
Even if you kind of work on it by yourself, that there's the sense of still disconnection, even if you're working on some kind of a trauma with yourself. Whereas if you can share it with someone, that there's something kind of a connecting quality, like a warmth or something. It's just an important part to be able to share what's going on with others and to be open with others, that allows that energy to move out and not just be in a kind of a lonely space. I don't know if that resonates.
I think that's quite possible, but I think the wonderful aspect about this work is that it is not codependent. In other words, someone's holding the space for you, but because you've been given a process of initiation of innocence, you actually have all these tools. So it changes it from therapy to facilitation, which is empowering. Every time somebody does something, they did it from their authentic, empathic qualities. And it's more satisfying for the person, because once, in my experience, therapy may get to the sort of picture of it, but only that person knows exactly, like the gold button thing. Like, oh my God, who would have ever known how to put those things together? You could be in 12 years of therapy looking at the gold buttons. What, the gold buttons again? Where the heck is that going? So what I'm saying is this idea of witnessing has been such a driving force for both of us, that we wanted to go, like, how far into witnessing should we go? And my thought was, when my girlfriend decided to invite me to be the sacred witness for her baby, I was just blown away with the idea of the opportunity. Wow, this is an invitation for me to actually be at one with a being before language. And I thought, what qualities of empathy could be shared with a little being fresh into life, and fresh from that co-creative space of no time, many past lifetimes, and all the wisdom that baby was created in. And my opportunity was so graced, Edwin, in that before the baby was born, I felt called to ask the mother to. I said, I'm seeing a sacred geometrical shape. What do you see? I'm saying to the mother, and she says a 6-sided star. So it is my capability, and Michaela's too, to be able to go right inside that image. And so I was with that child before he was born, and he was actually showing me symbolically. Now, this is before language, how do babies talk? So I'm in a 6-sided star, and as I'm looking a bit down, I'm thinking, and I'm trying not to use my imagination, because this is really important, not to imagine anything, to just be present for what is there. And so I said, well, it kind of looks like a Buddha to me, right? But then I went, okay, that's all right. But the energy that child gave to me was so delicious that I just cried. My face was just flooding with tears, and the front of my blouse wet, because it was so beautiful to know someone that deeply before they even came to the world.
And that authentically.
Yes.
Yes.
And the thing was that the whole house had been so tense for the whole week that I was there, trying to help in every way I could, and it was getting tenser and tenser every day. And what happened was the mother just said, I'm going to go and put the girls to bed. And 2 hours and 46 minutes, Odin came out the chute, and I felt him as I had my hands on the mother's coccyx. I felt him go past and under my hand, and out he went into the water. So I was right there to feel his physical body going past my hand. It was such a joyous feeling.
Sounds good.
Well, you look like you're radiating from it still.
Oh my gosh, yes. I just like, if my intention is to actually share this with others, I'm feeling that being witnessed, if you could actually, once you've done a few examples of, or a few experiences with innocence wisdom, that you could actually have that experience of being witnessed as a baby again, as that first energy that comes in before language. And we've been reading the book called The Secret Life of Babies, written by Michaela, and she talks about how important this witnessing is before the baby's born, that the parents would be far better off if they had a whole, if they were very conscious about how they were going to make a family, how they were going to be parents, how they were going to carry that baby, and to keep the environment so unstressful that the baby would come out in a much easier way, with not a lot of imprints before they even came to life right here. Yeah.
Well, I look at how do we create an empathic way of being, and I mean that's kind of what I mean that's how I'm translating what you're talking about. How do we, within a family, within the relationships, how do we have more empathic relationships, even before children are born, and before there's children, and building into the family. So it seems like that's, to me, like what your work is doing, is fostering that empathic way of being. I don't know if it's a vocabulary that you use, but that's what I'm really trying to create in the world.
I think that this is exactly what our work is about, but the first being to be empathic with, of course, is ourselves. And the first being to understand and not judge and to just allow and accept who we are is ourselves. So if we, from the very beginning, could understand that and have some kind of tools, a little tool chest to keep clear with that and to keep present with that within ourselves, then that's how it radiates to whoever is surrounding us, to our families, of course, our parents, our partners, our tribes, and really our world. This is the way to change a world, is they say one person at a time. Well, to start from within. And if we really can hold that empathy for ourselves and that love and that awe, like we are incredible beings, but we just forget that because we have imprints or whatever we'd like to say and many messages telling us otherwise. But if we get back there and understand that and hold that, that's when things really start rolling in all lives, in our families, in our bigger family on the globe, our bigger family.
Yeah.
The people in Syria right now, they're our family in my mind. So as we become more consciously and deliberate in our own authenticity and our own empathic nature towards ourselves, it just radiates out.
So really try to, I use the word self-empathy, so that's a sense of empathizing with our own self, which means part of it, what I'm hearing there is kind of take away the judgment, the self-judgment.
Yes.
I do have one question though, in terms of one can have a judgment in terms of, oh, I'm a terrible person in that sense, but there can also be the other side of the judgment is I'm a wonderful person. And it does seem to be two sides of the same coin, that you can't like have the I'm a wonderful person judgment and then say that there's going to be no negative judgment, because as soon as you get into either positive or negative judgment, it seems like you're kind of on that judgment scale. So it's like how to have a sense of self without kind of a negative or positive judgment, but more of a this is a way of being. I mean, that seems to be kind of a tricky.
Well, yeah, the nature of the human species is to always be looking from outside yourself at yourself, and it's a very different experience when you're actually right inside yourself and looking at the world. So it's just like you don't see a bear going, I wonder what I look like from this angle, right? I mean, that is not natural to any species. And we have actually learned how to separate ourselves right out of our own body. So most of us are not inside ourselves most of the day. They're actually watching themselves do their life, and they're not really in and fully present. And one of the reasons for that is that it's so uncomfortable for them because there's not enough room for their own authenticity. So their authentic self is watching their life. And I can give you proof on that, living proof on that, is because when I've done circles, I've asked people to close their eyes and to look at and to remember the most perfect natural setting that they ever saw, where they were just absolutely gobsmacked. And then they take that all in, and then I reverse it and I say, you don't have to say the situation, but just tell me, go inside and have a look at how you see a really traumatic situation. And 99.9% of the time, people will not be able to see themselves in a memory where they're totally and absolutely with nature. But when it comes to a traumatic self, it's like they have a camera angle outside of it and they're looking at the situation. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm on the ceiling looking at my parents' fight, or I'm at the top of the stairs, or I'm down the laneway at the very end of the road looking through the picture window. That's how far their psyche has to get away from the traumatic memory. So it's very different when you're actually in your own true nature. You have all the space to be authentic in yourself, right? But when something traumatic happens, it is a psychological thing where you actually go, get out of here, save yourself. You don't want to get involved in this. This is the best part. I never want this hurt. And you send it out. And that's the eyes that are watching the traumatic thing that happened. But if we only knew that if we actually could keep ourselves in ourself, that event would never have happened. Never have happened. And I can tell you how different that is that I have a sister with four children, and all of them very different. But the youngest one is the most evolved child, right? And when he would do something wrong, he would just smile at his mother and he would say, Mommy, I'm really sorry. I love you. I made a mistake. And she said, I don't know what the heck happens to me. I just melt and go, okay, well, don't do it again. And virtually, most of the times he didn't do it again. But he went into his loving self and he talked to her in a loving way, and he never got a spanking. The other kids are saying, I don't know, he's got a way about him getting what he wants. And she says, I don't know what it is, but that's what it was.
Mm-hmm. So instead of kind of detaching from yourself, you kind of go into what's really going on, kind of really speaking from what is it that one is feeling, or maybe the underlying needs that one has in that way. I mean, putting it into some of the vocabulary I've heard in like nonviolent communication, where you try to speak from what the need is that you have.
Yeah. Also, I think a really important tip here is to really find it in your physical body. So when something's up like that, there will be somewhere in your body, if not many places, going, I don't feel comfortable, I'm out of balance here. So find those places, breathe in those places, be in those places, and that totally helps the energy to move through, so that we can get to that place of, oh, okay, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I'm out of here. So this thought of bringing it really home, back to this three-dimensional vessel that we walk around in all the time, is, I think, a very powerful one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to bring this conversation about the topic to a close. But we want to do another short video of actually doing some of those practices and some of those exercises for doing that. So, and I'm going to be the volunteer. Or
That's right.
We've given up the word guinea pig.
That's right.
Okay.
So is there any comments in closing that you'd like to summarize or wrap up?
Yeah, I would like to say, Edwin, that I'm really glad for the opportunity to make very public what both Michaela and I have been working in a very quiet way for many, many years. And I wanted to say that this deep research and study and practice, defining and redefining, and being able to be open enough to witness, to constantly crack our own selves, to be empathic with our clients. That whole idea about judgment, I've faced that many times with my clients, and had to take myself so deep into compassion so that I could work with some people. And so I wanted to say that to any persons who are viewing this, there is absolutely no place that empathy will not go. There's no place where you can't be witness for your authentic self. And there's absolutely no way that people, once they are available, that they can't transform those things that have been keeping them from their greatest self.
Okay.
And I'd like to thank you, Edwin. I also have a great appreciation in my heart for you witnessing both of us today. And,
Yes.
and in such a full and welcoming manner. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And stay tuned for the next segment.
Yes, bye-bye.